If the last home that you bought was over 10 years ago, what the process looks like for buying a home today is completely different, and most buyers have no idea how much it has actually changed. Over the last decade, the average sales price has increased $142,000. 10 years ago, rates were under 4%, and then 2023, they hit almost 8%. Now they're back down to about 6%, and hopefully they're easing off a little bit. The NAR settlement has rewritten how commissions are paid nationwide. Tech has changed how buyers compete and find new homes, and the rules for buying a home are just fundamentally different than they were back in 2015. In this video, we're going to walk through the top things that have changed in buying a home in Minnesota over the last 10 years. And stick around to the end, because we're going to talk about the one change that most buyers are forgetting about. It's not the one making headlines, and it has the largest impact on you as a buyer today. I was recently helping out some home buyers that had been talking with their parents, and I see this all the time. We go and look at houses, parents come along, which is great, and I'm not trying to hate on parents, but they sit there and they tell their kids that walking through these homes, what to look for and what to expect, and the fact that this house is $350,000, it should be perfect, and other things like that. And again, I'm not trying to hate on parents. You know, parents are great, respect your elders, but the last time that they bought a house was over 10 years ago, if not longer, and it is just completely different. Again, the average sales price has gone up $142,000. And all the advice that the parents were trying to give to their kids, almost none of it applied. Things are just fundamentally different. Prices are up, competition is up because inventory is down, the way you interact with your agent has changed, how you finance your home has even changed. They're trying to use an old map where the roads don't even exist anymore. And educating yourself on how these things have changed is how you're going to get ahead. I'm Aaron Zenfennick with Titan Real Estate Group, and I help Minnesota buyers understand today's market when they're purchasing the largest asset of their lives. Not how things used to be 10 years ago, but how things are today in the real world. All right, let's dive into it. The top changes over the last 10 years. Number one, price. Prices now are in a completely different category than they were 10 years ago. The median sales price used to be $182,000. Today's median is $355,000. That is almost double the price. It's gone up $140,000 in just 10 years. And home prices have greatly outpaced wage growth. Why does this matter? The entry point into homes has just gotten much harder. Buyers who are working off the knowledge that their parents or older siblings have given them about when they bought a home 10 years ago are just not seeing the real picture. And when they start to go look at houses, they're often surprised at what they're finding. Down payments are higher in the terms of real dollars. Since home prices have gone up so much, that percentage of 180 is a much higher percentage of 350, right? In terms of real dollars, the percentage is the same, but in terms of real dollars, it's much larger, right? Larger purchase prices, higher interest rates, of course, that's going to mean a larger monthly payment. And of course, the actual house itself has increased in price, right? So what you're looking at, your parents walk into the house and they're like, wow, this is $350,000. This house should be immaculate. No, $350,000 is the bare minimum now. And if you go below $350,000, expect to have to do quite a bit of fixing up. The second big change that we've seen are mortgage rates. Now, back in 2015, they were slightly under 4%. And of course, during COVID, we saw them go to record lows under 3% even. Then in 2023, they went back up to almost 8%. That's the highest they've been in over 20 years. Thankfully, now in 2026, they've creeped back down to 6%, and they're expected to keep dropping over the next few years. What exactly does higher interest rates really mean to you as a buyer? Unfortunately, this large increase has priced buyers out. For every 1% that the interest rate increases, you lose 10% of buying power. What does that actually mean? From an increase of 3% to 6%, you have lost 30% of your buying power. That means a home that costs $450,000 at 3% now has the same mortgage as a home that costs $315,000 at 6%. And have you seen the difference between a $450,000 home compared to a $315,000 home? That's the difference between having a fully remodeled kitchen to having a property that is arguably a teardown. What else do these high interest rate increases mean? Well, over the last 5 years, we've seen what we call the lockdown effect. That's because interest rates were so low when these buyers bought that for them to go purchase a home would, again, same thing that you'd be facing as a home buyer, you're looking at a 30% decrease in your buying power. So what does that mean? Sellers aren't selling, right? Homeowners are not selling because they're staying put right where they're at. Because of this lock-in effect, homeowners aren't selling, inventory is dropping, and that is pushing prices up. And with the lower inventory, competition has gotten fierce. And if you like a home I guarantee you 10 other people are going to like that home too. That means you're gonna have to pull out all the stops, bells and whistles to get that home, right? Increasing price, waiving inspections, all that good stuff. Thankfully, we have started to see the prices kind of even out here, even drop just a titch, which should help most buyers, but they're still significantly more expensive than they were in 2015. Let's talk a little bit about the third change here, the NAR settlement. The NAR settlement brought a bunch of different commission rules. Now, mostly what it changed was the disclosures and how we see the commissions, right? Minnesota has actually always been ahead of the game when it comes to disclosures and all the paperwork that we have. We've been a very heavy disclosure friendly state, and a lot of other states did not have the same paperwork that Minnesota had. So things in Minnesota have not changed as significantly as they have in other states. How it used to work is when the sellers signed the paperwork, the listing contract, the listing agent would secure a larger percentage, usually around 6 or 7%, then in that paperwork, they agreed to pay the buyer's agent a certain percentage, usually about 2.7%. Now, some listing agents might try to take more of that and put 4% in their pocket and give out 2%. One of the reasons for this new paperwork that they came out with. But now how it works is the listing agent, when they sign the paperwork, is only signing for their cut. And then the buyer's agent, if they are looking for the seller to compensate them, have to write it into the purchase agreement and ask for that commission directly from the seller. That way the actual amount is disclosed right to the seller. Another big change is that the commission that the sellers are willing to pay the buyer's agent are no longer listed on the MLS. I don't really understand why. I don't know how that would negatively affect someone if they're knowing that the seller is willing to pay X amount of dollars compared to nothing, or vice versa or more. I just don't get why they banned that, but unfortunately they did, which kind of made things confusing for a while. Everything is starting to kind of become the new norm though, right? And everyone's getting used to them disclosing it or having to negotiate it in the purchase agreement. I truly don't see what the harm is of letting people know what you're willing to compensate them before they go see the house. But apparently that's against the rules now, so it is what it is. Another significant change from this NAR settlement is that you technically have to sign a buyer's representation agreement before you can go even look at a home. Now, this has always been the rule in Minnesota over the last decade. However, it was kind of like the speed limit. No one really pays attention to it if you break it, right? Unless you're doing something egregious. So again, this has always been the rule. However, now they've just gotten to be more strict. And so there's no more clicking on a button on Zillow and meeting a stranger out at a house and just having them turn on the lights for you and open the door for you and then never seeing that person again. Those days are out the window, which actually as a realtor is kind of nice. I remember back in the day, we'd get used and abused by people clicking on Zillow, not caring about our time or anything, having us do what they want for 3 hours and then never talking to us again. So in that sense, it's become really nice. Change number 4, how scarce the inventory has become. 10 years ago, it was a much more balanced market. Buyers had more choices, more time, more leverage, and less competition. During COVID-19, inventory dropped to historic lows. That meant multiple offers, waiving inspections, going $50,000 over asking, guaranteeing the appraisal. And I remember when homes were selling in hours, sometimes before they even went on the market. In 2026, there are less than 19,000 homes for sale in the state of Minnesota, arguably one of the most competitive markets we have ever seen. Thankfully, it's on the rebound. If homes are updated nicely and priced correctly, they're still moving really fast and in multiple offers. Change number 5, technology and how the buyers are finding their homes. In 2015, Zillow and Realtor.com both existed, but they were much more basic tools and not nearly as popular. Buyers nowadays are doing a ton of research on the internet before they even call a realtor. The internet has put so much power in the buyer's hands. It's essentially eliminated the neighborhood expert that your mom and dad are always talking about. Google's the expert. If you want to know about the school district, the crime rate, the commute time, all you have to do is take out your phone, type in a few numbers, and boom, you're the neighborhood expert. It's one of my biggest pet peeves when buyers and sellers are like, where's a neighborhood expert at? It's a myth, it's old school, it's out the door. Everybody is a neighborhood expert. All you have to do is Google it or watch a great YouTube video about it, right? Social media is also a big factor now. Everyone's watching 30-second clips on Instagram and TikTok and looking at homes that way. Buyers get real-time listing alerts. The second that home comes on the market, you get notified. And we haven't even started to scratch the surface on how AI is going to affect the real estate world. And what does this mean? That buyers are more informed than ever. The role that the agent plays has changed greatly. Info is everywhere now, and that means that you get the information, you interpret it, and you move fast. Instead of needing to research things for days or weeks, you can get all that information in an instant and make a move. Change number 6, loans and down payment programs. How many of you have heard from your parents, you need 20% down to buy a house? I know I did, and I wish somebody would have told me differently. There are so many programs out there. You have FHA with 3.5% down. A conventional loan, you only need 5% down. VA loans, you need 0% down. If you move to a rural area in Minnesota, the rural loans are 0% down. And that's not to mention all of the down payment assistance programs out there. You have Minnesota Housing offering up to $18,000 in down payment assistance. And that's just one of the many programs that are out there that you might qualify for. And that's where choosing the right loan officer who has access to all these programs and has the knowledge about all these programs really comes into play. All right, now the moment we've all been waiting for. So what's the one change that is affecting you more than anything else? It's the buyer representation agreement. And we're not talking about the form itself, we're talking about what the form represents. It's not just a piece of paper, it's a commitment. The person you sign up with is going to be the one who guides you through the entire process. And here's the problem that most buyers make, is they don't take this relationship seriously. They default to a cousin, a friend of a friend, the boyfriend's girlfriend's mom's baby's mama, babysitter. They think of the agent as just someone who opens doors for them and turns on lights. When in reality, there's a ton of things behind the scene that go on that agent is running for you. And if you don't pick the right person to represent you, that could be the difference between getting your dream home and getting stuck with a nightmare. The part-time trap. There's a rule in real estate, and kind of in anything, 80% of the production is done by 20% of the agents. There are 22,000 agents in the state of Minnesota, and 80% of them sell less than 5 homes a year. They're part-time agents. It's a side gig. It's a way for them to pick up a little bit of cash so they can go on vacation. They don't care about it. They don't treat it seriously. They don't live, breathe, and eat real estate like our full-time people do. Part-timers have no idea what the market's doing. They don't know if things are going into multiples, what kind of condition homes are in, any of that stuff. They only sell 1 home a year just so they can go on vacation. It's the part-timers that give full-timers a bad name. And if you choose a part-timer, what could that mean to you? Again, it's all those things on the back end that you don't see. It's how they interact with the listing agent. It's how they write the purchase agreement. I can't tell you how many times as a listing agent, a purchase agreement come in and I can see they write it wrong. They're missing things, they misspell things. There's boxes checked that shouldn't be. There's boxes that aren't checked that should be. And I look them up and see how many homes they've sold. 1 in the last 2 years, of course. If I'm a listing agent and I see 2 purchase agreements come in with the exact same terms, but one is written like they don't know what they're doing, I'm almost always going to go with the other one. Another big thing is the part-timer understanding the market. If they've only sold a home once in the last year, they don't know that things are going into multiple offers. And this could work vice versa. They don't know that things aren't going in multiple offers. It could be that last time they sold a home 6 months ago to a year ago, they had 10 different offers to compete with and they had to go $50,000 over asking. Now the market is completely cooled down. You don't have to go over asking at all. You can go under asking, but they don't know that. And they have you write an offer for $25,000 over asking. That part-time agent just cost you $50,000. Another part of part-timers that you don't think about is the communication. Now, real estate happens 24/7. And if I get a purchase agreement in, I always call that agent to talk to them and kind of get a feel for the buyer and their situation. And if I can't get a hold of them because they're at another job, I'm gonna call the next agent and get a hold of them. I have part-timers that won't return phone calls or emails for 2 to 3 days at a time sometimes. All those mistakes could be the difference between you getting your dream home and you looking for the next one. All right, that's all I got for you this time, guys. Now I wanna hear from you. I wanna hear from the people who bought 10 years ago, and what things are you noticing that are different, or what's something that you thought was the same, but after watching this video is now you realize is different. And first timers, I wanna hear from you too. What are some of the things that your parents told you about buying a home? Let's get it all out in the open. Leave a comment down below. I read them all, and we'll see you there.